Welcome everybody to episode 3 of the Timely Pursuits channel. I'm Azad.
And I'm Kevin.
And we're here to deliver this casual and informative, opinionated and superfluous show where we talk about horological happenings and our watch collecting lives. So Kevin, welcome back, big man. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well. It's been quiet this week. I haven't been up to anything much. Be glad to know. My wife will be glad to know I haven't bought anything either. So happy days. What about you? How are you doing?
Pretty well, thanks. Also quiet, although I have had a couple of new arrivals just show up. Although I'm going to have to do some unboxings for those for the other YouTube channel, so I won't reveal what they are just quite yet.
Looking forward to it.
Great. So let's start off with the wrist checks. What's on your wrist, Kevin?
Today I'm wearing a Grand Seiko Skyflake. Had this in my collection for a couple of years now. This was my first Grand Seiko, and it's beautiful. I had to decide between the Skyflake and the normal Snowflake. I decided again for this one. A good choice, definitely. I think everybody needs to have a Grand Seiko in their collection.
Totally agree. Fantastic watch. A big fan of Grand Seiko as well, so excellent.
What about you? What are you wearing?
Well, Kevin, I'm wearing a micro brand this time. So I'm wearing the Brellam limited edition triple calendar moon phase. That's right, Kevin. I am sticking with the moon phases just to wind you up every week for as long as I possibly can.
Oh, no. No, please don't.
But at the time of recording as well, of course, it is the Lunar New Year. So I've got another good reason to wear it. So happy Lunar New Year or Chinese New Year for many people out there. I don't have the watch on any kind of snake skin. I've got it on lizard today. I actually realised I don't have any snake skin straps, which is probably a good thing anyway.
Yes, I just want to wish our viewers as well happy Chinese New Year as well. I do have a python strap. Which is very nice. I have it on a different watch, but interesting times ahead, don't you think?
Absolutely. I think the world is in a very difficult place right now. So hopefully we're offering a little bit of escapement from it all with this channel. Let's move on to the news and new releases section. I'm going to kick things off this week, starting off with the new H.Moser & Co. Pioneer Tourbillon Burgundy. This is one sexy piece that's just been released. I'm a big fan of Moser, especially the Pioneer cases. They are meant to be the more sportier watches, but as you can see with the latest release, they've opted for red gold for the case and included a tourbillon movement inside. I think this looks fantastic. At just 40 millimeters in diameter, I think it should wear very well on most people's wrists. The only thing I'd question though is, are we moving away a little bit from the more sporty nature of what the watch is meant to be with the introduction of red gold and the tourbillon? Or does it still serve its purpose in that regard? The price is coming in at just under 60,000 Swiss francs, or about 53,200 pounds sterling. It comes with the Moser caliber HMC 805, which is a 3 Hz beat movement with a 3-day power reserve, which I think is actually quite impressive for a tourbillon movement. Kevin, what do you think of this one?
I'm a big fan of Moser. I've been looking at Moser watches for the past couple of years, and I've nearly come to purchasing one or two previously. This particular one, I think you're right. As it's supposed to be the Pioneer entry field watch model, by it going to rose gold and having a tourbillon, it loses the mark. And I think it's going into more high-end luxury watches within their range. However, it's a lovely piece. It's very, very nice. I like it. Would you purchase this?
If I had the money, absolutely I would. Although I'd have to drop it on a leather strap because I think it's just too dressy to function as a sports watch, but I still love it nonetheless.
I agree. It does need a fancier strap, maybe a leather crocodile or python strap.
So Kevin, what's caught your eye from the new releases?
Well, as you are probably aware, it is the year of the snake, and there's been quite a few brands which have jumped on the bandwagon and produced watches for the Chinese market. The one which has caught my eye is the Vacheron Constantin Year of the Snake watch. They call it the Legend of the Chinese Zodiac Year of the Snake. It comes in platinum and in gold, and it's a 40 millimeter self-winding movement, 12.72 millimeters thick, and it's a jumping hour. I haven't seen this in the metal, but just by looking at the CGIs and the photos, I really do not like it. It's interesting movement, but the whole package is really not for me. What do you think of this watch? I was going to say something a bit more derogatory there, but I won't.
Well, between the two, I actually quite like the rose gold version. I think the enamel work looks fantastic if that's what you're into, but it's personally not for me myself. I dread to think what the price is going to be on this, but then again, I think it's one of those watches where if you have to ask what the price is, you probably can't afford it anyway.
You're absolutely right. This is a extremely limited edition watch. I believe it's 25 worldwide being made in each reference, the gold and the platinum. It's not really for me. It's a beautiful piece. The enamel work is beautiful, but the fact that they've got a big python staring at you, threatening to kill you on the dial, and to me, it's just a bad design.
Now, Kevin, there's been quite a few releases to mark the year of the snake out there. And I think it's fair to say that some are better than others. Were there any others that you quite liked?
There have been a few. The ones I really like are, for instance, the Christopher Ward, which was released earlier this week. That's a really fun take on the snake. It reminds me of the old Nokia phones where you had the snake game, which you could play in between taking phone calls. It's a really, really fun take. I do like it a lot, and it's a very affordable piece of horology.
And that one's being done in collaboration with Second, which they've done, of course, before. But yeah, very nice piece.
There are a few others. There's the Longines one, and of course the Bulgari Serpente, which is basically a snake on your arm. They've updated that, and it works very, very well. I don't understand why horology brands have to jump on the bandwagon about Chinese New Year's. It's a celebration, but do they have to all do a watch to symbolize this particular mark or milestone?
Well, that brings us neatly to our first discussion point for the show. Are brands really just taking advantage of calendar events and markings of these moments? I feel that Kevin's got quite a lot to get off his chest, so let's get into that.
I don't have a lot to get off my chest. I just don't understand why watch brands have to produce a watch to signify this particular milestone. It's not just one or two. There are quite a few out there. I mean, I will mention a few. IWC, Hublot, Jaeger LeCoultre, Longines, Raymond Weil, Christopher Ward, just to mention a few. I don't understand why they have to celebrate the Chinese New Year. I know the Chinese market is very, very big, but last year, I think they were second only to the American market. Why don't they produce a watch celebrating the general Western New Year coming out in the 1st of January? Or even being more specific, a watch which symbolizes American election? I'm being really facetious here, I know.
Well, there is a Trump watch, Kevin. So, there are some of these being marked out there, but perhaps only for a few fans, shall we say?
Yes, definitely for a few fans. The Trump watch was produced by himself, but I'm looking at the other brands, especially American ones, like potentially Hamilton, to do something which symbolizes a milestone in the American history. I'm just putting it out there. Obviously, they're not going to.
A few moments later.
There are so many other milestones that brands can look into, but they just don't. They just don't. And am I missing something apart from the fact that the Chinese market is big? What do you think? Put something in the comments. Let me know your thoughts. And what do you think, Azard?
Well, I mean, you can't go wrong with 1.4 billion people. And that's just in China, let alone all the people that have moved away and are living elsewhere. I think what really helps with the Chinese Zodiac is that there is a rotation there, and therefore the year of the snake will come up once every 12 years. So it's not an annual repetition, which I think would become very dull quickly. For those people that celebrate it, there is an affinity to their own birth year. So I know a few people that were rushing to have their children, for example, just before the Lunar New Year because they were desperate to have dragons as babies for the last New Year. So there is something personal for those releases, and I can see why there may be some demand. But I guess that's probably lost on the rest of the world that don't have that same affinity, that don't really market it in the same way.
I understand what you're saying, but just taking a point which you just mentioned, are you saying that you know people who had their wives induced so they can have babies as part of the Year of the Dragon?
You have to understand that the dragon in the Chinese zodiac is the kind of the god of all the zodiac animals. And so absolutely, there's a lot of demand that if you can have your child within the Year of the Dragon, you will push to do so. And yes, I do know some ladies who tried to have their deliveries scheduled just before the change of the new year. We're not going to go into all the different zodiacs, but there are definitely some that are ranked higher than others. The dragon is quite up there. The snake is not too bad, but you can quickly begin to understand why some people would find affinity with their own birth year and their own zodiac sign.
That's very interesting. Please put something in the comments if you believe that women should be induced at a certain time so their child has a certain birthright or even a zodiac sign. Please let us know.
I'm not sure I can leave that in there. That comment, but we'll see.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Should women be induced to match the zodiac? Absolutely. Now, our good friends at Scottish Watches have just released a limited edition with Duckworth Prestex, who hopefully will get on the show at some point. That was partly to celebrate St. Bern's Night, although that one maybe wasn't designed around St. Bern's Night. It was just kind of released ahead of St. Bern's Night to kind of mark the occasion. I suppose that's not really the same thing, is it?
No, it's not. But that was limited just to 100, I believe. And it's only just one brand. No other brand's going to be doing this sort of work just for this market, the Western market.
So if you had to pick one holiday or one occasion coming up or in your calendar, which would it be that you would like to have a brand make a watch for?
Oh, well, it'll have to be all the brands in all the world do one for my birthday. How is that for a challenge?
Absolutely. We'll work on them one by one and get that done for you, Kevin.
Absolutely. Look forward to that, yeah.
We're going to have to call it Kevin Day, aren't we?
Yeah, absolutely, call it Kevin Day. Everybody has a day off. Everybody gets a 3 drink of white rum, which is one of my favourite tipples. And we'll make it work. We'll make it work. Don't worry. But on a serious note, I can't think of anything offhand. But please, in the comments, please put your suggestions in there. We'd like to hear from you about this. Is there a specific day that we should have, the Western world should have, where all horological brands should produce a watch for? Let us know.
I should say other manufacturers of items, collectible items especially, also jump on this bandwagon. So, for example, I also collect fountain pens, and there's been a whole host of releases, of course, for the Year of the Snake. But, I mean, they are far less restrained with focusing on the calendar. So there will absolutely be Halloween releases, St. Patrick's Day releases, Christmas releases, and so on. So it's not just the world of watches, although I will say that a watch is typically something more expensive and a bigger consideration for most people when they make their purchase. So they're less likely to dip in and buy something as superfluous, unless, of course, it has a special meaning to them, which I think maybe the Chinese Zodiac does so for many people.
I understand, but I didn't realise that other manufacturers, such as fountain pens, did Chinese New Year items as well. That's interesting. That is interesting.
Well, thank you, Kevin, for that hot take on snakes. So let's move on to our next point of discussion, which is the ladder. That's right, we are playing snakes and ladders. What do I mean by this? Well, specifically, how to get up and ahead in the authorized dealers' ladders? How do you slowly but surely climb your way up into improving that relationship and getting those hot pieces that you've been after for quite some time? So, Kevin, what's your experience been in the past? How have you managed to cultivate that relationship with your authorized dealers?
I've been quite fortunate, I have to say. I mean, I've been looking at watches for a good 8, 10 years now, certainly before it became really, really popular. I started off with Omegas, and if you listen to the first episode, you might have heard me talk about that previously. If not, please go back and listen to episode 1. So I started off with Omegas and Breitlings, but I started off with one particular dealership, and I was true to that multi-brand for a number of years. And we were just talking about watches popping in there from time to time. You know, it was just around the corner from me where I worked. So I started off with a multi-brand. And then what tends to happen in the industry is that people go from one boutique to another boutique, go from one multi-brand to another multi-brand. So you just keep in contact with them. Be nice to them. Obviously, just talk to them. You don't have to buy watches all the time. You just talk to them, show that you're passionate about watches, and just go from there. As you develop and your taste develop, you go in, try on a watch, say yes or no. It just goes on from there. That's all it is. As I say, I have been very, very lucky in the watches that I have bought. And it's purely by cultivating friendships and talking about watches in the boutiques, in the multi-brands.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think if I can offer any advice is be nice to the people that work in the stores. That's the best way that you will get the pieces that you're after over the long term. Ultimately, if they can, they will and they want to sell you what you're after. The difficulty can be that stock can be limited, and for them that means they have to be very careful in how they allocate that stock and make sure that they're looking after their most important clients. And unfortunately, if you are new to that store, you might be further down the list than you ideally would like.
I agree. I'm just going to tell you a quick story about how I got a particular watch from a multi-brand. I bought from them just one watch at the time. It was the Bond Spectre from Omega. I bought it from them. I popped in, the person who was supposed to buy it didn't turn up, so I was fortunate enough to purchase that. And because I've popped in there previously and subsequently afterwards, I got a phone call from them sometime later on about a particular watch. My car had been written off, so I was saving for a new car. I had X amount of money to spend. They kept on phoning me, telling me, Kevin, you have to come in. We've got something for you need to look at. So literally, I reluctantly went in because I wasn't planning on buying anything, just to keep them happy. And they said, we've got one of these watches left. It's the last one in the company. Do you want it? And they showed me the Silver Snoopy, original one, which came out 10 years ago. So they offered that to me and they said, Kevin, you have to buy it. They even showed me on eBay that at the time they were going for 10 grand and they were saying, Kevin, you have to buy it. It's great for your collection. Even though it's only your second Omega, you have to buy it. And so reluctantly, I bought it. I had no interest in that particular watch at the time because I didn't think I was be able to get one, to be perfectly honest. And because I just kept in there, showed I was into horology, showed I was interested in other brands as well. And that's what happens when you're nice to people. I've been very fortunate. Have you had any luck like that, Azad?
I have, although I've had a lot of bad luck as well, I must say. The number of times I've walked into an authorized dealer, especially if it's one of the large department stores, they've typically been incredibly snobbish at the time. And found that, well, if you don't have a previous history with them, half the time that they won't even speak to you. Again, depending on the brand that you're talking about. But yeah, I found in the past that if you're popping in frequently and speaking to somebody so that they get to know you on a reasonably frequent basis, then that can open doors up over time. And of course, as long as you stay reasonably loyal, make a few purchases, and I'm not saying buy things you don't want, I'm saying build up some kind of history as a collector, then they will start to trust you a little bit more. Now, it's interesting the story you told, Kevin, because my experience has been that most retailers, be it boutiques or authorized dealers, they're quite guarded about selling a watch if it's trading in the secondary market above its retail value, they're very keen not to sell it to somebody who is likely to sell it on very quickly. They want somebody to hold on to it there. But I guess back then when you were speaking to that retailer, it was probably before people really understood what the secondary market was.
Yes, it was. That's a true statement. As I said, they did show me one on eBay, but they knew I wasn't going to flip it. And to be honest, I still have that watch. I still have it. And it's now worth a load more, shall we say, in the secondary market, because you just cannot get hold of them. And that leads me to a separate topic, which we probably will talk about another time, but I'll just touch on it now. Because of its value, I don't wear it that often.
Well, the secondary market has calmed down quite a bit now, so hopefully there's a little bit less pressure on the retailers to screen out those flippers, and hopefully makes life a little bit easier for true collectors to get hold of the pieces that they're after. I'm sure one day soon we will do a separate show on the watch market and how things are going. I mean, both of us really aren't in this hobby to try to make money. We're really here to enjoy watches and collecting watches. But yeah, we'll certainly come back to that topic at some point. I'd like to touch upon the darker side of this game with the retailers, and that is some of the unscrupulous individuals who choose to favor some people in exchange for some form of favor. Now, this has been documented in the past. There have been some whole retailers caught out in doing this. This goes beyond the, if you buy this watch, we will give you access to this watch. This is, you must give me a certain amount of money or something else in order to be able to get access to this. Now, I've not personally experienced this myself, but I do have friends that have worked in retail who have openly said, look, it absolutely does go on. Less so in the UK. I think that the rules are quite strict. And of course, we do have a bit of a oligopoly in terms of the number of retailers out there, especially the big retailers, and they control the stock very carefully. But certainly outside of the UK, I've seen it in the Middle East and in the Far East as well. Yeah, absolutely. Some of the people that you deal with expect a bit of a kickback in order to get you that hot piece that you're after. I don't know, have you experienced anything like that yourself, Kevin?
Fortunately, I have not experienced anything like that. Personally, I've never seen or heard of anybody doing that in the UK. Pretty sure it happens, but I couldn't say definitively.
I mean, the reality is, as soon as the company finds out, they usually fire those people very quickly. Unfortunately, they can go on to get jobs in other retailers because of confidentiality agreements and HR policy. But it absolutely does happen. Now, I'm not telling anybody to offer bribes. Absolutely don't do that. We don't want to start encouraging that kind of behavior whatsoever. It's just an unfortunate side of the current situation, which is you have a mismatch between demand and supply, and some people will seek to take advantage of that mismatch.
Yes, unfortunately, it's just human nature. I mean, I've heard similar things about certain cars. I certainly do not wish people to do anything like that. If you want a piece and you like it, there's just two options. Wait, get your name down on the list, and your name will eventually turn up. Then they will sell it to you. It may take time, but it is what it is. Or the other option is grey market. Depending on the piece, it may be certainly cheaper if you're forced to buy certain pieces from a dealership. Why don't you just go grey market and purchase the watch direct from a third party? Those are the two options.
I never like to pay over retail for a watch, although we have to be realistic. If it's sold out or if it's absolutely unavailable, sometimes you don't really have much of a choice if you really want it. And I'll tell you a story about a watch that I was on a waiting list for about 5 years before I finally got it at retail. The ridiculous thing was that when I first saw and fell in love with the watch and decided to go and register my interest in it, the grey market price was about 50% more than the retail price, which, yeah, I mean, it's a lot of money to be putting out for on top of what the retail price was at the time. But in that time of me waiting for it, the retail price crept up by about 50%. So in reality, had I just gone to the grey market at that time and paid over the odds for it, I would have enjoyed it for the full 5 years I was left waiting for it. and pretty much paying the same thing as I did pay for in the very end.
That's very interesting, Azard. Very interesting indeed. Please put in the comments your suggestions on how to climb the AD ladder to get the piece that you've been dreaming of. Thank you very much for joining us on this third episode on this YouTube channel. Please like and subscribe, and do not forget to hit that bell icon, which will notify you of when the next episode is uploaded, ready to watch. Where can they find you, Azard?
Well, you can find me on Instagram under az.time, and you can also find me on the other YouTube channel, aztime. How about you, Kevin?
You can find me on Instagram also at Kevin_Roberts100. That's the best place. But please do not forget to put some comments in the box below and let us know what you feel we can do and any topics you think we can tackle.
Thanks very much, everybody. Goodbye.
Thanks, everybody. See you next time.